Good evening. I am Dean Matthew Plouffe, and tonight on Bridge of Continents, we examine a story that has astonished experts and observers around the globe. A story that challenges conventional thinking about Africa's economic future and the broader dynamics of global trade. Burkina Faso, a landlocked West African nation traditionally known for its resilient people, vibrant culture, and agrarian economy, has made an unprecedented move that has captured worldwide attention. President Ibrahim Traoré, who assumed leadership in 2022, has announced a large-scale mink farming initiative, and this single decision has sent reverberations through Europe, North America, and beyond. The world is watching closely as Burkina Faso ventures into a sector long dominated by European and American producers, a sector fraught with ethical debates, environmental concerns, and economic significance.
At first glance, the idea of Burkina Faso entering the global mink industry seems improbable, almost implausible. Yet, in announcing this initiative, President Traoré demonstrates a unique vision and an unwavering commitment to economic innovation. His administration, known for its audacious reforms in various sectors, has consistently sought to redefine the nation's economic trajectory through policies such as the redistribution of farmland, investments in domestic industries, and measures to enhance self-sufficiency. Traoré has positioned Burkina Faso as a country willing to defy expectation. Mink farming in this context is not merely a business decision. It is a strategic move aimed at asserting economic sovereignty and creating a new narrative for West Africa on the global stage.
The decision to focus on mink fur, a product historically associated with luxury, European fashion, and controversial ethical debates, was met with immediate astonishment. Established markets in countries such as Denmark, Finland, and the Netherlands have seen decades of experience, yet here was Burkina Faso, a country with little prior engagement in this sector, signaling its intention to compete at scale. Observers were quick to recognize that this is not a minor initiative. It is a national project with profound economic implications. By cultivating mink fur domestically, Burkina Faso hopes to generate significant employment opportunities in rural regions, stimulate industrial infrastructure, and attract foreign investment. Beyond the immediate economic incentives, the move also carries symbolic weight, challenging the assumption that African nations cannot innovate in complex, high-value markets.
The announcement reverberated immediately across Europe, where mink farming has recently become a flashpoint of public debate. Several European nations, citing animal welfare and environmental concerns, have banned mink farming or imposed stringent regulations. The European Union, in particular, has classified the American mink as an invasive species, effectively restricting its cultivation within member states. This regulatory landscape presents both challenges and opportunities for Burkina Faso. On the one hand, the European market's restriction could provide a gap that new producers from Africa might fill. On the other hand, ethical scrutiny and trade barriers may complicate the nation's ambitions. Activists and policymakers alike are debating the potential impact, with some seeing Burkina Faso as a pragmatic innovator and others warning of the moral and ecological implications.
In the United States, the reaction has been equally multifaceted. The American fur industry, though diminished in recent years due to declining demand and heightened ethical scrutiny, is carefully observing Burkina Faso's entrance into this space. Industry leaders recognize both the competitive threat and the potential for collaboration or sourcing partnerships. Meanwhile, animal rights organizations in the U.S. have expressed concerns similar to those in Europe, emphasizing that any expansion of mink farming must adhere to humane treatment standards. Environmentalists have highlighted the potential risks of introducing intensive fur farming into regions without precedent, raising questions about pollution, ecological disruption, and the ethical considerations inherent in such operation.
For Burkina Faso, however, the initiative is framed as a national opportunity. President Traoré has articulated a vision where economic diversification, rural development, and global competitiveness intersect. He emphasizes that the country is not pursuing this initiative recklessly,
but is implementing policies designed to ensure sustainability and ethical compliance. Investments in infrastructure, veterinary oversight, farmer training programs, and controlled breeding techniques are all part of the strategy. Through these measures, the administration aims to demonstrate that it is possible to balance economic ambition with responsible practices.
The ethical discourse surrounding mink farming, however, is unavoidable. Globally, fur farming has long been criticized for the treatment of animals, often highlighting confinement in restrictive cages, lack of enrichment, and inhumane slaughter practices. These issues are magnified in international discourse, and Burkina Faso's government faces the challenge of addressing these concerns transparently and rigorously. Environmental factors, too, cannot be ignored. Intensive fur farming carries the risk of local pollution, potential disruption of ecosystems, and the challenges of integrating non-native species into new habitats. Burkina Faso's decision, therefore, is not just an economic experiment. It is a test of governance, planning, and the ability to balance national development with global ethical expectations.
The potential benefits, however, are significant. Economically, the project offers the promise of high-value exports, job creation in rural communities, and the stimulation of ancillary industries such as feed production, veterinary services, and transportation logistics. Farmers and entrepreneurs previously limited to traditional crops now have access to a high-demand, high-reward market. The government's support in the form of subsidies, training, and infrastructure seeks to ensure that participation in the mink industry is not confined to large operators, but is accessible to local communities. In this way, the initiative carries the potential to create a more inclusive economic ecosystem while simultaneously elevating Burkina Faso's profile in global markets.
Beyond the economic calculus, Burkina Faso's entry into the mink industry carries profound geopolitical implications. By asserting itself in a sector traditionally dominated by Western nations, the country is signaling its capacity to make independent policy choices that prioritize national interests. This sends a message not only to neighboring African countries, but to global powers, indicating that Burkina Faso intends to carve out a distinct economic and political identity. President Traoré's approach reflects a deliberate balance between ambition and prudence, asserting national sovereignty while preparing to navigate the complex network of international trade relations and ethical standards.
As the world watches, questions abound. How will Burkina Faso meet international expectations for animal welfare? Can the country manage the ecological risks inherent in mink farming? Will this initiative open new economic pathways, or will it encounter unforeseen barriers that stymie growth? These questions are critical, for the success or failure of this venture will resonate far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. It will influence global perceptions of Africa's economic innovation, ethical responsibility, and ability to operate successfully in complex, high-value markets.
President Traoré's vision is not confined to immediate economic gains. It is an effort to reposition Burkina Faso within the global narrative. Traditionally seen as a nation grappling with challenges of poverty, instability, and limited infrastructure, Burkina Faso now projects an image of a country capable of strategic innovation and global engagement. This initiative, audacious in scope and controversial in nature, challenges preconceived notions and underscores the capacity for African nations to lead in arenas previously thought exclusive to Western economies.
The initiative also highlights the tension between economic development and ethical responsibility. Globally, mink farming has become synonymous with debates about cruelty, consumer ethics, and ecological impact. Burkina Faso's government is navigating this tension carefully, emphasizing transparency, compliance, and monitoring. By taking a proactive approach, it hopes to avoid the pitfalls encountered by other nations and establish a model for responsible fur production that could influence future international standards.
International observers continue to monitor the situation closely. The European Union, which has already imposed bans, is watching to see how Burkina Faso navigates regulatory, ethical, and market challenges. The United States, while not yet issuing formal policy statements, is tracking developments as part of broader considerations about trade, ethics, and market competition. The reactions are complex, nuanced, and in some cases contradictory, reflecting the intricate balance between market opportunity, ethical standards, and geopolitical considerations.
The story of Burkina Faso's mink farming initiative is emblematic of larger global trends. It demonstrates how nations can leverage unconventional strategies to secure economic growth, assert sovereignty, and gain influence in global markets. It also reveals the moral and ethical responsibilities that accompany such ambition. Success will require more than technical expertise or market access. It will require careful governance, transparent practices, and ongoing dialogue with the international community. As the narrative unfolds, Burkina Faso stands at a crossroads. The mink farming initiative may prove to be a transformative economic engine, creating jobs, stimulating innovation, and positioning the country as a global actor in a specialized industry. Alternatively, it may encounter resistance, ethical dilemmas, or unforeseen challenges that test the limits of governance and strategic planning. Either way, the initiative has already reshaped the global conversation about Africa's role in high-value markets and the potential for bold, unconventional policy decisions.
In conclusion, Burkina Faso's entry into the mink farming industry under President Ibrahim Traoré represents a bold, controversial, and highly significant move on the global stage. It illustrates the country's commitment to economic innovation, national sovereignty, and strategic engagement with international markets. At the same time, it raises essential questions about ethics, sustainability, and responsibility. The world will continue to watch, learn, and respond as Burkina Faso navigates this complex, unprecedented venture, and the outcomes will likely influence future debates on trade, development, and ethical industry practices across the globe.
This is Dean Matthew Plouffe, delivering an in-depth report for Bridge of Continents, highlighting a development that challenges assumptions, reshapes markets, and redefines the boundaries of global economic innovation.